Monday, October 6, 2003, air taxi pilot Willie Fulton is flying near Kaflia Lake, Katmai National Park, Alaska. A day before, Willie's friends Tim and Amy had asked him to fly his float plane in to pick them up on the beach the following afternoon. Willie finally arrived at their campsite to pick them up but found the area abandoned except for a bear. After landing, he yells for the couple but receives no response. He notices a little bit of movement in a tarp, then decides to hike up the path from the beach and through the thick alder brush towards the camp. When he got close to the camp, he senses that something was strange and the bear was still there. So, he turned around and headed back down the path to get to his plane, and just as he gets to the plane, he turns and spots that bear that he had seen on earlier, sneaking slowly down the trail towards him with its head down. Willie then takes off and flies over the campsite in an attempt to chase the bear away, and sees what appears to be the same bear feeding from a human rib cage. This is the story of Timothy Treadwell. Timothy Treadwell was born in 1957, Mineola, Long Island, New York. He attended Connetquot High School, then attended Bradley University on a swimming and diving scholarship. A lover of animals since he was a child, Timothy decided to travel to Alaska to watch bears after a close friend persuaded him to do so. Timothy studied the bears during summer seasons. Timothy spent the early part of each season camping on the Big Green, an open area of bare grass in Hallo Bay on the Katmai Coast. He called the area the Grizzly Sanctuary. Timothy was known for getting extremely close to the bears he observed, sometimes even touching them and playing with bear cubs. He habitually named the bears he encountered and consistently saw many of the same bears each summer and thus claimed to be building a standing relationship with them. In contrast, park authorities said that he was breaking every park rule that there was, in terms of distance to the bears, harassing wildlife, and interfering with natural processes. Right off the bat, his personal mission was at odds with the Park Service, and he had been warned repeatedly. During the latter part of each summer, he would move to Kaflia Bay and camp in an area of especially thick brush he called the Grizzly Maze. Here, the chances of crossing paths with wild bears were much higher, since the location intersected bear trails. Timothy recorded almost 100 hours of video footage and produced a large collection of still photographs. By 2001, Timothy received extensive media attention and appeared on the Discovery Channel, The Late Show with David Letterman, and Dateline NBC to discuss his experiences. He also cowrode among grizzlies, living with wild bears in Alaska with Jewel Palavac, which describes Timothy's adventures on the Alaska Peninsula. Timothy and Palavac founded Grizzly People, an organization devoted to protecting bears and preserving their wilderness habitat. Timothy's years with the bears were not without disruption. Almost from the start, the National Park Service expressed their worries about his behavior. According to the file kept on Timothy by the NPS, rangers reported he had at least 6 violations from 1994 to 2003. Included among these violations were guiding tourists without a license, camping in the same area longer than the NPS 7-day limit, improper food storage, wildlife harassment, and conflicts with visitors and their guides. Timothy also frustrated authorities by refusing to install an electric fence around his camp and refusing to carry bear spray to use as a deterrent. In October 2003, Timothy and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenot, who was born in 1965, in Buffalo, New York, a physician's assistant, visited Katmai National Park, which is on the Kodiak Island. Timothy set his campsite near a salmon stream where wild bears commonly feed in autumn. Timothy was in the park later in the year than normal, at a time when bears attempt to gain as much fat as possible before winter. Food was scarce that autumn, causing the bears to be even more aggressive than usual. Timothy and Amy were to leave the park at his usual time of year, and had actually returned to Kodiak on September 26 to store their gear for the season and catch a connecting flight to return to their home in California. After an argument with the airline ticketer over the price of altering his return ticket, Timothy and Huguenot made the decision to return to their campsite on September 29 for an additional week. Timothy also wanted to locate a favorite female brown bear about which he was concerned. The bears he had been used to during the summer had already gone into torpor, and bears that Timothy did not know from other parts of the park were moving into the area. Timothy sees a bear diving into the river repeatedly for a piece of dead salmon. He mentions that he did not feel entirely comfortable around that particular bear. Amy feared bears and felt very uncomfortable in their presence. Around noon on Sunday, October 5, 2003, sometime between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m., Tim and Amy made a satellite phone call to Jewel Palavac, program director of Grizzly People Malibu, California. By satellite phone, Timothy mentioned no problems with any bears. Earlier on that same day, Tim told his pilot friend Willie Fulton to fly his float plane in to pick them up on the beach the following afternoon. The next day, air taxi pilot Willie Fulton arrived at Timothy and Huguenot's campsite to pick them up, but found the area abandoned except for a bear. After searching, he sees what appears to be the bear feeding from a human rib cage. Shocked, Willie contacts the park authorities. Katmai Park rangers received the call from Willie at 1:35 p.m. Only way to get to the campsite is by plane, so at 3:20 p.m., rangers depart in a plane. Park authorities also report the incident to King Salmon State Troopers, requesting that troopers meet the park rescue team at Kaflia Lake near Tim and Amy's camp. Meanwhile, Willie then lands the plane about 1 mile west of the camp on the western shore of the lake. At 4:26 p.m., the rangers arrive at the lake, conducts a quick interview with Willie Fulton. Then the rangers carefully approach the campsite. In a few minutes, one ranger spots a large adult bear near the top of the hill where the campsite is supposedly located. Rangers start to yell as they walk to help locate any surviving victims, and to alert any nearby bears of their presence. Suddenly a ranger yells, "Bear!" while pointing to the right. They see an adult bear moving toward the group about 20 feet away. All four begin yelling in hopes that the bear would see them and move away, but it continued to approach them. With no other choice, rangers begin to shoot at the bear. After about 10 seconds, the bear dies. The rangers continue towards the camp and in few minutes, they find human remains buried by a bear near the campsite, which was in a brushy area with poor visibility. 2 tents were discovered, one for gear and the main tent used for sleeping. Both were collapsed and torn, however, there was no evidence that the bear had pulled the victims from the main tent. In front of this main tent was a large mound of mud, grass, and sticks, 5 feet long, 4 foot wide, and 3 feet high. After moving a clump of dirt, they discover fingers and an arm protruding from the pile. Both Tim and Amy's shoes were also found neatly still in place at the entrance to the main tent. They start looking around when they spot a large bear about 15 feet away walking up the same trail they had just hiked up. The bear hesitates for about 2 seconds before turning and walking back down the trail to the lake. After searching the nearby area around the campsite, discover what was left of Timothy. His head connected to a small piece of spine and his right arm and hand laying nearby with his wristwatch still attached. Meanwhile, searchers discover Amy's body, appearing as though she were peacefully asleep except that her body, like Tim's, had been mostly eaten by the bear. Later, as the couple's remains were loaded in a helicopter, suddenly, a smaller bear approximately 3 years old, about 30 feet away. Rangers fire a warning shot into the air, however the bear did not react. This bear was intermittently visible as it moved through the brush and tall grass. As the bear continued to move towards the group, rangers opened fire at the bear. And the bear was killed. Video and still camera equipment discovered at the scene were subsequently examined by Alaska State Troopers, who found that the last 6 minutes of videotape, still located in the camera bag, recorded the sounds of the attack. The tape opens with Amy's voice, tinged with surprise as she inquires whether it's still out there. It seems that Tim either requested her to activate the camera, or she instinctively turned it on herself. Timothy's voice cuts through the chaos as he shouts, "Get out here! I'm being attacked." The distinctive sound of a tent zipper follows, accompanied by the flap being pulled open. Amid the cacophony of rain pelting the tent, howling wind, and the struggle between the bear and Tim, Amy's frantic voice urges, "Play dead." A brief silence ensues before she cries out once more, "Play dead." Amy's yelling and screaming in the vicinity seem to deter the bear, causing it to cease its attack. A brief conversation follows as Amy and Tim attempt to ascertain whether the bear has truly left the area. With her training as a physician's assistant, it's likely that Amy approached Tim. However, audio captured on tape indicates that the bear returns, prompting Amy to retreat. Tim can then be heard shouting in frustration that playing dead isn't effective and pleading with her to hit the bear. The sound of rain drumming on the tent, combined with the wind, muffles the surrounding noises. Nevertheless, Amy's voice cuts through, urging, "Fight back." Moments later, she can be heard shouting, "Stop. Go away. Or maybe run away." At the same time, there's the loud clang of a frying pan striking the bear's head, accompanied by the sound of Tim moaning. At this moment during the attack, it is thought that the bear released its grip on Tim's head, which it had been holding in its jaws, and clamped down on his upper leg instead. Amidst the howling storm, Amy's panicked screams echoed, while Tim's voice rang out, clearly urging her, "Amy, get away, go away." Aware that he was facing death, Tim's priority shifted to protecting Amy from meeting the same grim fate. As the tape concludes, Amy's screams escalate dramatically, similar what hunters refer to as the sound of a predator call used to mimic the distress cries of a small, wounded animal, often luring in bears. Biologists speculates that Amy's screams might have drawn the bear back, ultimately leading to her death. The audio segment of this videotape runs for about 6 minutes, with Tim's cries and pleas audible for roughly 2/3 of that duration. Unlike some traumatic injury victims who may have succumbed quickly in a shock-induced dream state, Tim's final moments were marked by a clear awareness as he fought desperately for his survival. The bear moves almost silently, with only faint growls and occasional grunts breaking the stillness, heightening the terror of the situation. The chilling sounds of the bear dragging Tim away, along with the distant echoes of his screams, suggest that he is being pulled into the underbrush and away from the campsite. On Friday, October 8, 2003, 2 days after investigators first arrived and killed the 2 bears, a necropsy of the larger bear was conducted, where it was learned the stomach and digestive tract contained human remains and torn pieces of clothing. 4 garbage bags containing human remains were removed. The smaller younger bear had been eaten by other bears and only the head remained, so no determination could be made as to whether this young bear played any part in the deaths or the consumption of the victims. The circumstances surrounding their deaths sent shockwaves through the environmental and conservation communities. Timothy's death served as a stark reminder of the potential dangers inherent in closely interacting with wild animals, no matter how deep the perceived connection may be. In the aftermath, the debate regarding Timothy's approach to wildlife intensified. Was he a reckless zealot who took unnecessary risks, or a misunderstood advocate for nature? On one side, some argued that Timothy showcased an idealistic yet flawed relationship with nature, while others saw his work as a cautionary tale about overstepping boundaries. So that's all we got about Timothy Treadwell, and thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button, and if you have something to say, please leave a comment.